Ahlan wa sahlan. Right now we're going to talk about how to answer why questions in Arabic. Answer the question لماذا? And there are a couple of different words that we can use to answer these questions, including بسبب, li, and لأن. Each of these expresses a slightly different idea and has certain grammatical restrictions that we're going to explain in detail right now. For purposes of this video, we're focusing pretty much on Fusha, on standard Arabic. All of these forms, however, tend to crop up regularly, even in colloquial speech. There are some separate colloquial forms that we'll also discuss in another video, but you can expect to hear these in the speech of educated native speakers, even when they're speaking in their own dialects. There's a lot of overlap in terms of what we encounter. And the grammar in formal Arabic is a little more, demands a bit more precision from us. In colloquial, we tend to have a little bit more flexibility. So that's what we'll be focusing on right now. First, we have bisabab, which is actually a combination of two words. It's the prefix, the preposition bi, like with, plus the word for reason in Arabic. Sabab. So when we say bisabab, we're saying with the reason of, or maybe a little more colloquial in English, we could say because of, right? So we use bisabab to answer a question and provide a reason that is a phrase, right? We're never going to follow bisabab with a complete sentence in Arabic. You can think of it as an idafa, right? If you go back and take a look at the video that we did about the idafa construction, with the reason of X, whatever. So I could say, for example, if I wanted to say, we like the summer because of the beautiful weather, right? نحب الصيف بسبب الجو الجميل. Now, الجو الجميل is a phrase, right? We have an alif lam here on the noun and then another alif lam on the adjective. What I cannot do with بسبب is say بسبب الجو جميل, right? That doesn't work. It would be as awkward in Arabic as if I said in English, we like the summer because of the weather is beautiful, right? It doesn't quite work. It's a little bit clunky. So we can only use a phrase at the end. Or if we say, I don't like New York because of the crowding. لا أحب نيويورك بسبب الازدحام. Right? Because of the crowding, because of the crowdedness. So think of the of in because of, right? That's going to be a really useful barometer for you. Can I say because of with the emphasis on the of? Then I can probably get away with using bisabab in Arabic. There's even a certain harmony. Bisabab, because of, they share a certain rhythm. So allow that to assist you. Second, we have li, which means for the purpose of or in order to do something, right? What is my goal in doing something? And just as in English, when we use a construction like that, in order to, for the purpose of, we're following it with a verbal idea. And in Fusha, in formal Arabic, when we use li in a sentence, we're going to need to follow it with a verb of some sort, either a conjugated present tense verb, al-fi'l al-mudari', or a masdar, right? It's one of those verbal noun forms that we've learned about in previous videos. So, for example, if I want to say, we went to the library in order to study, for the purpose of studying, to study, I have options. I can either say, ذهبنا إلى المكتبة لندرس, right? Here I have my li, and then I have that conjugated present tense verb. I'm literally saying, in order that we study, right? It's conjugated for us with that noon right here. ذهبنا إلى المكتبة لندرس. Or what I can do with no change in meaning, instead of saying لندرس, I can use the masdar form of that verb for studying, which is الدراسة. So I would take that li and append it to الدراسة. Like that, right? Or maybe we're going to the library to read, right? So we could say either لنقرأ, for that we should read, or للقراءة. So whether I use لنقرأ or للقراءة, لندرس or للدراسة, the meaning is identical, right? For the purpose of, in order to. Finally, we have لأن. And لأن allows us to express reasons in the form of a complete sentence, right? With a separate entire clause that explains the answer to لماذا. So let's go back to this sentence about the beautiful weather, right? Here we have نحب الصيف بسبب الجو الجميل, because of the beautiful weather, a phrase. What if I really want to say because the weather is beautiful? I can do that using لأن. For example, well, let's just do it here. نحب الصيف بسبب الجو الجميل. I could also say لأن الجو جميل. Notice that jamil is no longer definite, right? It's the khabar of this jumla ismiya. And لأن is always followed by a jumla ismiya, right? So al-jaw becomes our mubtada, and jamil is our khabar, right? Now, what if we want to use a pronoun after لأن? Because he, because it. Then we have to do something a little bit different. You might think that we're going to use the regular subject pronoun forms, but we don't actually. We use the object pronouns in the suffix form that we've seen before, right? So you might want to pause, take a moment to go back and look at the object pronouns video if you need a refresher. But basically we're going to connect those object pronouns with this noon with a shadda over it. So for example, if we wanted to say something like, she isn't going to school this week because she is sick, right? We can say لا تذهب, she doesn't go, she isn't going, إلى المدرسة هذا الأسبوع لأن, and then I'm going to add that object pronoun لأنها مريضة, right? Because she is sick. So I still have an entire jumla ismiya, which I need to have after لأن, but instead of writing hiya, as we would in an ordinary one-clause jumla ismiya, I have this special form of hiya. I use ha, the object pronoun attached to لأن. Let's take one more example. We could say, he studies Arabic because he's majoring in translation. So, يدرس العربية because he is a major in translation, right? Majoring in translation. لأنه متخصص في الترجمة. So here again, هو, right, in its object pronoun form is the مبتدأ or جملة اسمية. And then all of the rest of our sentence is our khabar, the information that's being provided. So as you're looking at these forms and working with them, working on controlling them, try to bear in mind the kind of grammatical structure that you're going to need after each one of these particles and the nuances of meaning that each of them is going to allow you to express, right? These are some really powerful forms in Arabic because they allow us to express, I mean, look at these sentences, they're pretty long. They allow you to express complicated ideas, to make excuses, to justify actions, to support your opinions. So devote yourself to being able to control them, and you'll discover that the breadth of your speech can really expand.